And so it's going to be an opportunity for you to ask questions to the testifiers, about their experiences, the interview process, what are the types of questions that they ask, right? And all of that. And I'm confident that the testifiers will be more than willing to share their experiences with us today. That is why we are here today, right? And for this, we give all the glory to God Almighty. Amen. I know that Marvin is a very busy person. I don't want to waste his time. So we're going to start with him. I don't know if he's able to share his video, but if he is able, then he will. If he's not able, then he will not. Right? It's still very okay, right? And yeah, we are going to take it from there. So Mavic, if you're in the house, we'd like to give you a warm welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thank you. Unfortunately, I can't share my video right now. I'm sorry about that.
Okay, cool.
Yes.
All right. Yeah. So let's welcome Mavic, and this is going to tell us, his journey with Lion Tech, how everything moved on from day one to when he got hired. So we'll take it up from there. Thank you so much. And Mavic, you can move on.
Okay. Hi again to everybody. Well, I am a student of I think that was the second batch or the third of Lion Technologies Academy. I actually joined the class following a recommendation from a friend who actually studied with Lion Technologies, and he told me that it was going to be a great experience for me, learning experience for me, and I would not regret it. So, hello?
Yes, okay. Yeah, we hear you.
Yeah, so I joined the class of was it October 2022? Yeah, the class of October 2022. Yes. And after speaking with Prof, and he agreed, and everything was smooth right from the beginning. The classes, the meetings. I think remarkably, the very first thing that struck me was how personal he was with everybody. Always ready to call you, even on a personal basis, to sort out your issues. I can't really count how many times I even saw videos, even not aside different classes that we had. I would see videos that were posted on the channel, and you would realize that these are personal videos one-on-one that he had with different students who were having issues, maybe trying to complete their projects and all of that. And so it was very I was very impressed by that. So I always had it in the back of my mind. If I know anybody who wants to study DevOps, this is going to be my first recommendation for them. So I would say the class for me, on a personal basis, was very smooth because, like I said, he was very personal and ready to answer every question, no matter how. Because people come here from different backgrounds. Some people have a prior knowledge on computer, and others don't. So it's normal. It's okay. Somebody might ask a simple question, and you're like, "Wow, I didn't think you would know that." But he he doesn't make it funny. He just answers the questions, and that's what I also took note of. Not making anybody feel uncomfortable with whatever background you came from. It's easy. Everybody can start from anywhere and pick up from there. And as far as the program goes, I would say that it covers everything, as in my experience, based on the job descriptions I've seen while I was job hunting and having conversations with different people who are attending classes similar to this one in other states in the United States or elsewhere, having conversations with them and trying to find out what they're covering to see if I'm lacking in somewhere. People always people are always left maybe amazed and, oh, you're doing this, we don't do that, or maybe we are yet to do that. I mean, and then how long are you? We have like they'll tell you we have a month to go and we haven't covered this, we haven't covered that. I'm surprised you guys are doing that. So that's how I came to understand that I had the full package here. That aside, at the end of the studies, we also had boot camp where we had to do projects, and that also was like a way of making us understand, because for those who are just starting, it's going to feel, or it probably feels overwhelming, because when you start hearing about all these different tools and you don't know what they are used for, trust me, at the end of the day, it's all going to make sense. It's like a full package. Everything has a role. It's like you want to make a donut. Somebody just start telling you about milk and sugar and flour, and you don't know what all these things are. But then at the end of the day, when they tell you the process of making a donut, you understand that sugar has its place, milk has its place, and flour has its place, and you just understand how the whole process works. So for those who are still starting, at the end of the day, once you complete this program and you're doing your boot camp, you're doing projects, you will understand how all of these come together to complete a particular task. So the boot camp also was very helpful. And what else? Also, another thing is that when I started looking at job descriptions on the internet, there are some times then that you see some certain tools, and then you do not it don't sound familiar to you, but don't be panicked. Rest assured, there are just alternatives to every tool that you have probably studied or are going to study. If you are looking at job descriptions and there's a mention of Bitbucket, don't worry, you have experience working on GitHub. If you are looking at job descriptions and you see mentions of JFrog, don't worry, you have experience working with a Nexus. Or they're mentioning Chef and Puppet, don't worry, you have experience working on Terraform and Ansible. So if you haven't seen all those others tools that I mentioned that you have experience in, the only thing I think you need to do is, for example, if you just what I would do if I see a tool that that's not familiar to me, I just look it up, just research, and you find that that tool is similar to something that you've studied, and that's how you just relax and then study, or make sure you focus on what you've studied, the experience that you have, and it's going to be easy for you. And I'm sure it's no news now that the job market, and with everything that's going on worldwide economically, it's hard. So the job market is a little bit tighter now than how it was maybe 10 months ago. So the prayer I had when I finished studies was for God to just give me one chance. You have recruiters who contact you, and then they'll just reach out to you and they'll ask you all those generic questions, basic questions. What do you want to do? Why are you leaving your job? And all of those things. And they'll promise to submit you, and then you never hear anything from them. Or they submit you and the hiring manager choose to go with somebody else who have maybe more experience than you, or whatever reason they might have for selecting the other candidates than you. So my prayer was always to just have that one chance, just one chance to be submitted to talk to a hiring manager. And I assure you that that's all I got, just one chance. It's just this one interview that I had to talk to a hiring manager. Besides, I've spoken to a couple of recruiters, and they will ask, like I said, they will ask you, they're all generic questions. I've never had a chance to actually be moved from one recruiter to actually go through the hiring process. And we all know that the first discovery call with those recruiters, they are just just nothing. So the reason I say this is because I came to understand that this program gives you, honestly, everything that you would need. When I went through the last stage of my interview and came back, I was very confident. I just didn't want to raise my hopes, but I can assure you that I was very confident. Why? Because it was a 3-hour interview. When I spoke to the hiring manager, and after a couple of days, the recruiter reached out to me and like, we want to the hiring manager was excited and they want to move to the next stage, and you're going to talk to a team of 45 minutes each, a total of 3 hours. I almost did not. I was like, I've never heard this before. I was like, no, I cannot do this. What am I going to say? So I reached out to the recruiter. What do you think? Can you just give me a scope of the interview? Is it going to be anything technical? Or he didn't reply. He just sent me an invite and the address to where I was supposed to go for the interview. I was just like, okay, well, whatever happens. So I just prepared and I went there and I shot like I said, I can assure you that for 3 hours I had so much to say. I had so much to say because every question that they asked me were things that I know or have experienced in after working on projects during the boot camp or working on projects while we were studying during the course of 6 months and all of that. And again, there were just so many things that were just reviews, just flashback to when I was attending my classes. Like the prof always tell us, when you're writing your resume, make sure that you can defend what is on your resume. Always, he'll always tell us that, and that is what I took. I paid attention to because I think the second person who walked into the room, interview room, he had 45 minutes. The first 25 minutes, he just went line by line on my resume. He was like, okay, you say you do this. Explain a little bit more. Or you say you can do this. Tell me more about that. What is this? And he just acts like he doesn't know. He acts like he doesn't know what maybe Nexus is or maybe what Jenkins is. Just tell me a little bit about Jenkins. Just those very simple questions. And if you know exactly what Jenkins is, that would be 15 minutes for you to explain what Jenkins is, and you just blow him away. So 3 hours went by and it felt like an hour because it was very easy for me to just cool them, just tell them everything I know and all of that. Um, I think that's that's basically just an overview of my experience in interview. And like I said, if you study everything, the material that you have here, trust me, there is no interview that would be. They can be maybe behavioral questions. They will just ask you, so how do you do when you have a conflict? Or they ask you, what is your biggest challenge with management or your company? Those are very different questions that they ask me. But again, if you study and then watch some YouTube videos on how to answer questions and all of that, those are things that you cannot get all of that from any class. Let's be fair. But you just study the material that you have, technically just blow them away, and then all those behavioral questions. Sometimes no answer is the right answer, because one of the last questions a lady asked me was just tell her what I think. She didn't want me to give her a textbook explanation of what is DevOps. She just told to ask me, what do you think is DevOps?
Wow.
Personally, yeah. She just asked me, that was the last question. She said, I don't want, there's no right or wrong answer. What do you think is DevOps?
Wow.
So yeah, that's something that you just have to think about. Just when you're researching and reading and all of that, just think about this. When you're watching interviews on YouTube, you just hear some questions that you cannot expect even during your practice or during a boot camps, but they're just questions that people can just ask you. It almost blew me away, but I just gave a very simple answer. If you understand what DevOps is, it's we come here every day. If you understand the software development life cycle, you just know how things are done manually. Just an example, say when you're studying how we use Maven separately, you study how we use SonarQube separately, study how we use Nexus separately, and all of those tools. But then when you bring in automation, you see how you bring all those tools together and then to do a simple process. Without automation, you realize that all of this is done manually, and it's a huge task, very cumbersome. So I just explained that to her, and I just told her, see, for me, in my personal view, DevOps just makes lives of developers easy, simple, because without DevOps, developers will have to do so many manual processes and all of that. But DevOps to just come into the mix to just do so many things and then bring in automation and make the life of developers easy. She smiled. And that was it. I don't think my answer was the best answer, but it was just me just bringing into perspective what I think and what I've learned so far. Um, yeah, I think that's an overview of what my experience has been. I don't know if anybody has any questions for me. I'm open to that now.
Right. So before we came before we come to the to the questions from the students, so what would you say were some of the striking technical questions that were asked? And yeah, and then just try to relate the question to maybe, okay, let's say, okay, what were the interview questions that we ask you on Jenkins, for example, or maybe on Kubernetes, or maybe on Terraform, Git, right, Linux, and all of that. So, can you recall some of the questions that we asked? I know sometimes it's quite challenging to have a good recollection, but I think it's still very fresh in mind, and maybe
Yeah, honestly, when you're in the moment, you're just floating. So you're just living in the moment and trying to remember what you have in your head. But I can think of um Jenkins. I think one of the questions I was asked on Jenkins was how we automate Jenkins in our environment. Yeah, yeah.
Wow, see
Yeah,
that?
yeah. So how do you automate Jenkins in your environment? And again, that just gives you an opportunity. Say you have 45 minutes with this team member. You just start by telling them what you use Jenkins for, and then you just integrate Jenkins in the whole process of building a CI/CD pipeline. And
Yep.
then what I realized is that because during my interviews, even talking to the hiring manager or the recruiter, I just want to get feedback, watch their facial expression, everything you say, how they smile, how they nod. So sometimes it's like a revealing moment to them because with all the four different team members that I spoke to, most of them didn't actually know is everything they were asking. It's
Of course.
just yeah, and
Yeah.
I realized how much confidence play in the interview process. Sometimes you don't really know what you're saying, but you just have to be so confident about what you're saying because like Prof used to tell us during classes, no two companies have the same workflow, so they all work differently. They use different tools. Sometimes you just blow them away with just jargons, but because just because they haven't heard about it before, it sounds so perfect, and you sound so confident and with
Yep.
yeah. So yeah, with Jenkins, you just asked me to explain how we automate Jenkins in our environment, and with Git, I was asked to tell them a time we've had um an issue with a GitHub, or yeah, issues with GitHub and maybe with developers. So the question was, how do we manage our GitHub repositories or account? Who is in charge? Is it the developers or is it DevOps? And I should explain one time we've had issues and what was the cause of the issue and how did we resolve it. So of course we've had during studies and even bootcamp, we've had instances where somebody's trying to do a pull request and it doesn't work well. When Prof is telling us sometimes do not push to the master branch. In fact, I'm actually going to make sure that I restrict people from pushing to the master branch. And so this is just the experience. That's just the work
Yeah.
environment. So I just brought all of that and just told them this is we DevOps manage the GitHub repository and then we create branches and all of that. And I spoke of one time when a developer was trying to make a push request, make a pull request to
Okay.
yeah, just talked about one time when a developer was trying to push to a GitHub account and then just push to a wrong branch and all of that. So you just bring all those examples into the mix and they just nod and they're smiling. So again, it has to be you trying as much as possible to give them a picture of a work environment. It doesn't have to be right again. You just have to give them a picture of a work environment. Do not try to formulate something. Your studies, in the process of the studies and bootcamp, there are so many things that are going to happen that you can use them as a work scenario, and it's just going to be fine.
Wow, that's great. Okay, so let's open up now for a few